Welcome back to Soccer Cards United. It is episode 271 of the greatest soccer card podcast on earth. My name is Jason. That's Enzo. Hello, Enzo.
Hello, Jason.
Boy, oh boy, what a week we have had.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh, man. Oh, God.
Some
All
podcast
day.
listeners may not even know this because we actually didn't do a podcast last week.
We wanted to do a pre-show. We wanted to do a pre-show pod, but naturally, we are always more ambitious than we were capable, maybe.
Yes.
We didn't quite have the time to do the pre-show, which would have been fantastic. A pre-show, post-show, that was my dream.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't have a chance to do it, Jason.
No, I had a kind of in hindsight, naive expectation that by kind of Thursday, it would be like, right, now we just wait. But that very much was not the case.
No matter how many singles I priced and assisted in pricing in, there was just consistently more and more kept getting found in pockets that I didn't even know we had.
Yes.
And it just kept going, oh, that would actually be really good. We can't really leave that. And it just kept getting out of hand.
Yeah. But anyway, needless to say, if anyone has been living under a rock, on Saturday, we had the second edition of the Dublin Card Show at the Convention Centre, Dublin. Oh, there's a card stand, look.
From third down, there's a little card stand. You don't have to edit in the Dublin Card Show now. You see,
thank you very much. That saved me a lot of work. So that's the Dublin Card Show for a second time in the Convention Centre of Dublin on Saturday, just gone the 1st of March. And it was incredible. It was more than twice the size by attendee numbers of last year's show.
It was mental. And we were sold out a week in advance. The demand this year was insane.
And people will remember, because for the last kind of 6 months or so, we've been promoting this show on the podcast. And you may remember from the fact that we were promoting it so heavily that we were not necessarily expecting the foot traffic to go up so much this year. Because if we had been, we wouldn't have been here every week being like, please, DublinCardShow.com, get your ticket.
Get involved. And people got involved from everywhere.
The Irish public kind of appeared en masse at a certain point. And that was the end.
Yeah. At one point, it kind of hit a critical mass, and it made it into a few Discords or a few Facebook groups or whatever the case may have been. Word of mouth went crazy. Social media was doing its job. We got lucky there. But yeah, it just to sell out a week in advance, and like we had radio ads planned for that week, planned and paid for that week, by the way.
Yes.
That just we're basically running while the event was sold out, and we're like, we just got the admin work. To be honest, the admin work was something that I wasn't expecting at all. I really thought once you sell out, all that side of the admin was gone, but little did I know, once we sold out, we had thousands of emails being like, but I need a ticket.
I will say, and we're going to get into the show was brilliant, but let's just kind of, because we didn't do a pre-show pod, so we did a lot of this stuff wasn't, so let's take people back just before the show. I will say that selling out the card show a week in advance was followed by getting all those emails from people who hadn't gotten their ticket, was one of the kind of most whiplash-inducing emotional roller coaster, sort of stressful moments of my entire life. I've never gone from a situation that should have been triumphant to a situation that was crushingly stressful so quickly.
100%. There was so many stories of just, my kids are freaking out, my kids are crying, my partner's really unwell, and this was going to make it better. The show, and it just everything from top and bottom that you could possibly imagine. And, it actually distracted us in the lead up to the show because we spent a lot of our time. A lot of our time trying to settle down, a lot of our time trying to decide, will we do afternoon tickets? What will that look like? How will that fit into the show? What is the capacity?
What's the fire safety? What's the insurance?
What's everything? We got into that mode, and it totally derailed what was a successful sellout.
Yeah.
And it disrupted a lot of the preparation, which thankfully, we got there in the end. But it was
we were kind of getting emails, as you say. It was like, I've been bitten by a rare poisonous snake, and the only antidote is contained in the Dublin Card Show, and I don't have any tickets. It was kind of one of those situations.
And it was like, oh my God. Yeah. We had one person who had actually booked their flights and hotel and left their ticket to last and said, please. Please. And I sorted that person out because I said, okay.
Yes.
You have flights and hotel from a different country. Like, I'll figure this out. But like, some people were like, look, lads, I just need 7 tickets. And it was like, what are you saying? Yeah. And there was a good few people that said, listen, I'm 100% sure I bought these actually, but it didn't come out of my bank and I have no email saying so. I'm pretty sure I did it. Because a lot of people were like, can I be cheeky and just say, could I get one? And then other people were like, I'm going to have to just lie through my teeth to get this done.
Yes. I mean, the old I booked this, but it didn't go through trick, because no system is perfect. And like, we use Eventbrite for the show. And so sometimes you do book it and you don't get an email. You know, your email bounces the ticket. So because that does sometimes happen, people know that you can't
To
just
try
write
it.
it off immediately. It's not a foolproof system, so it can be tried. And
Which led to work for me googling through people's names and trying to see
yeah,
was there any form of anything in the system. It was just that was
hmm
unexpected. But at least now we're prepared for it next year. Turn an automatic email response on. That'll people come back next year.
yeah. We had a what do we have? We had a waiting list going. We had a sort of, and people were saying like, you'd email them back and say sign up to the waiting list. And they say I've signed up to the waiting. I've seen that. I want to skip the waiting list. I
I
don't
need
really
my
understand
ticket.
what a waiting list
I,
is really.
people were telling me they'll pay double. I was like, we're not trying to create. We're not holding. We're not Ticketmaster. We're not holding back tickets to
Yeah,
gouge. But who would have thought Dublin Card Show Year 2 was an event you could gouge tickets for?
well, you know, sort of legitimately not me. I knew this year was going to be bigger than last year because obviously we'd increased the number of tables, we'd increased the interest. The Irish hobby has had another year, the European hobby has had another year, and it's been a year of word of mouth. So like I knew it was going to be bigger. I didn't think it was going to kind of become so big so quickly, and sort of it's like the law of unintended consequences, like like or even like you want the show to get bigger, but what's worse than not getting what you want, getting it? It's like there's all sorts of problems that are created by.
We've had so many people say, lads, you've seen it yourself based on that show. Like, you need to do 2 a year. Come on. And
Yes,
it's like,
yes.
what they don't understand is the strategic point of view of like every year we leave it till the next show, the Irish hobby, we're giving the Irish hobby a year to mature, to
Mhm.
professionalize, to educate, to get increased interest.
So actually, just on that, are we taking this opportunity now on the podcast? And obviously, we can, if elsewhere, we can do it as well. But are we taking this opportunity now on Soccer's United podcast to confirm there's no other Dublin card show for the rest of 2025 at least?
There's no other Soccer Cards United ran event in Dublin that is a card show, or in Ireland that is a card show for the
Yeah.
rest of 2025. That is confirmed.
Right. Okay, that's confirmed.
And I'll say this though, that is in part down to we want the Irish hobby to develop, because
hmm
what we seen this year was also very different to last year, just in terms of Irish hobby. We
Yep.
still lean a lot on the internationals, which I think it is time to give them a huge thank you, because we had such an amazing influx of international people. Like the international attendees and more so the international vendors added to the quality of the show.
hmm
And I think you do it twice a year, you're going to split that up. And that's really important for Ireland at the moment because of where the hobby is. That you
Yes.
cannot have half of our international vendors in one show for the year, half at the other show in the year, and both of them getting a lesser experience.
Yep.
So when the Irish hobby can fully, from a vendor point of view, stand on its own 2 feet in TCG and in sports, because there was a lot of TCG saying we wanted more TCG vendors, and we were basically saying, yeah, we lifted every rock in Ireland trying to find them
Yeah.
all, but
So did we.
it's limited. We didn't ban them. We didn't say sports
Yeah.
only. We didn't,
Yeah.
because there was like some TCGs were saying there was too much sports at the show, and it's like, listen, we would love a Magic the Gathering vendor at the show. We've had them lined up. We've had some people drop out a week in advance. Like there was a lot of
Yeah.
tables. We lost about 10 or 12 tables the week of,
Yeah.
and then people were like, I thought there was Magic the Gathering table, and it's like, yes, what did we?
Yeah. 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 No, I know. I think that's a key point. I mean, I had that conversation with a couple of people over the weekend just about like the we're dealing with a domestic market that can produce attendees, but not necessarily hobby attendees or seasoned hobby attendees. But anyway, but they can produce attendees. The domestic market right now cannot fill our room with vendor tables, and certainly not with the kind of vendor tables that the attendees are expecting. And it just kind of does get confusing for us to be trying to say kind of on an international level, come to Dublin, because you don't want to get, say you did 2 a year, you don't want to get one is the good one is the bad one. You don't want to get that kind of reputation. You don't want to kind of confuse people like, oh, I heard he said he was coming, but he must have been talking about he was coming in April, and I'm here in October or whatever it may be. So there is that. But anyway, just you're right. The international vendors and attendees that attended, thank you so much to them, because it was a significant investment. And the feedback, I have to say, the feedback has been very, very good. Now, I would go so far as to say our international visitors and our international vendors
And
had a better time, statistically, as far as just kind of anecdotal, than anybody else. They loved it.
yeah,
And that may be because they know what a card show is.
it is. We had a lot of like, we sent out feedback forms. We got a lot of feedback, and the only ones that fell in negative fell into kind of a cohort of TCG Dublin based, so travel the least, TCG
Mm-hmm.
Dublin based, and in a certain age group, right? And it was like And a lot of them in their feedback said this was my first card show. So it was like, okay, you weren't expecting this at all.
Yeah,
You
because
know?
this is crazy. Like, you know, I mean, even I think back into the national and our first national at Atlantic City, um, where we do kind of tend to joke about I would never go back to Atlantic City, and you know, and it's an absolute hellhole, et cetera, which is all pretty much true.
True.
But I also think that I personally did not know really what to expect. I'd been to card shows before, but never on that scale, never to that level. And probably if you sent me to Atlantic City for the national now, which I hope you never sent me there, by the way, but if you did say, Jason, you got to go to the national Atlantic City,
Yeah, I'm skipping this one, Jason.
I would be able to handle myself and I'd be able to make the most of it for myself because I would know what I was doing. So I do think, regardless of where it is or who's hosting it, et cetera, the your first large card show, and not that we're the size of the national, but the first significant card show is overwhelming, no matter who you are or where you're from. And so I think a lot of our first time attendees, because again, we added so many people this year compared to last year, did kind of have an idealized version of what it might be in their head, which is completely fair. But they did maybe get a couple of things that were a bit shocking to them, you know.
Yeah, the shock to the system, no doubt about it. Because like you don't even know if you like card shows until you've gone to your first one.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that was kind of part of their.
I mean,
yeah,
one
we
thing.
kind of found that. We found anyone who had been to kind of multiple card shows came and were incredibly impressed.
Yeah, the more card shows you'd been to, the more likely you were
to have enjoyed it.
To have enjoyed it. So, but that's not to say we're not happy it's growing. Of course, we are happy it's growing, and you have to if you want to grow it, especially in a new market. Like I mean, a couple of people commented to say that it's pretty incredible to kind of be watching, because usually in a card market you wouldn't have an organization like us, like us and our associated support staff in place to put an event like this on at the level that the domestic market is in. And a lot of people said like you could kind of feel the energy in the room, almost like the market kind of like, you know, one of those time lapses of a flower kind of growing like that. Almost like the market is coming alive right now. The hobby is growing in this room. And there was definitely an energy in the room that isn't present at card shows where the vast majority of attendees are much more experienced.
Our sharks, Jason. There was less sharks swimming the waters at this show.
Yeah, there were a few.
I'll add to that. It's like it's me and you, we've been in this for years doing it, but then we're lucky that we have a podcast and that we've traveled so much, that we've interacted with so many people that all pretty much was like they came almost through association, through knowing the podcast, or through association to conversations we've had with them at various shows around the world. And like we've almost thrown an international presence into the Irish market for the Irish people. Because like there are like the kind of more Irish hobby heads that are hardcore that love it, that they're like, we go to Dublin and there's all these international fellows, and it's meant that you're kind of getting a feel of what you get in London or Germany or whatever. We're getting a little splash of that in their country.
We're bringing the hobby to them.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
But it makes for a very complicated hosting of a show, because there's so many layers. Like there's a lot of people that are just Irish people that might be TCG, might be Match Attacks, might know about the hobby a little bit, and they're walking into a room and they're almost very confused.
Yeah.
But not in a bad way. Like they're shocked and they don't know what they're seeing, what they're not seeing. But it is kind of like, I don't know, I just think it's different too. Like, because like we've gone to Copenhagen and we went to Paris year 1, year 2, and I just feel like it was a totally different vibe to those shows, which were, you would argue, kind of timed in a similar way our shows were timed in terms of where the hobby is and where the market is and what's happening.
But they were like more like what our show was like last year.
Yeah, but then what I'm saying is this was totally different.
Yes, this was totally different. Yeah. This felt like something was going on in the room. There was a kind of and I mean, obviously, if we said this or whatever, but multiple people did. I'm being hand on heart. They said I can't quite describe the energy in this room, but there's something going on. That sentiment was repeated by multiple people who were coming up with it independently at multiple levels. Yeah, like people were saying it's not like people just couldn't describe it. There was an energy, there was a vibe, there was something going on, there was something in the air. The air felt a little bit heavy.
But there has to be something to be said. Like I will go on record, Jason. Now, of every card show we've gone to globally, this was our highest at the Sock Cards United table, because we have a table set up. It was our highest revenue day at the table out of every card show we've gone to. Now, part of that is because we were able to have as much of our inventory as possible. Like you can't do that if you're in Ireland. It's really hard to do that at a German show or at a UK show, which I think we would beat that number if we had that kind of setup. But even we had a similar setup last year and it didn't hit that level to be the number one.
Not at all.
And multiple vendors, particularly international, were saying the same thing, that they had actually themselves, which was I was shocked by.
Mm-hmm.
They were saying like that was one of the best shows they've had in terms of revenue at tables.
Yeah, because people as well, are not coming to the show with necessarily a Zion case, or with like, that kind of feeling where you're like looking at a card and you're like, even if say it's a cheap card, €5 card, you're like, I might want to buy this, but then it's like, I have so many cards unorganized at home. I'm not just going to kind of add to that. Well, people are just building their initial stacks or their initial decks, to put it in TCG language.
Yeah.
So they kind of need the stuff, and they don't have. I mean, of course they have stockcardsnight.com, but they don't by and large have that much access to, especially singles.
Yeah, and we've seen again that you see at shows all over the world, TCGs were crazy. Like we do our best to get as many TCG tables at the show as possible. I think this year it was about 37% of vendor tables were TCG.
Right. Yeah,
it's about 42 out of 120. They were just busy all day. Like, they like one of the vendors had 5 people at their table, and they just said they had an incredible day. They were working. A lot of people had 1 or 2 at a table, and the lines were building up. It was getting crazy. Yeah. Next year, we already know, like, we need to spread them out a lot, because there was definitely congestion points in the room. Like, we had a lot of people, like even Jesse from Sports Card Nonsense, who was there. We were very thankful that he came. People were asking us how much we paid him to come, but it's pure. People don't understand how organic the show is. People don't. That's a point that I would love for the listeners at least to hear. Like, we had Troy from Trike Cards was there. Like, we had like multiple Americans that made the trip, and it's not a difficult trip to make, but it's still transatlantic for a card show.
Yeah,
in an emerging market as opposed to a developed market. But like the organic, and I think I call it organic. It's through the podcast. It's through us flying around and meeting people. But that's still organic, right? Like that's still. These are not paid spots. No one was paid to be at the show. No. But I'm just saying that Jesse put out like a very nice review quickly on his Instagram, and one of the things he said, and again, this is interesting coming from like an American coming into Dublin without really knowing Ireland's landscape. He was like, that venue is not going to suit. They need a different venue. And it's like, we're essentially in the number 1 venue in the country. Like, there's a couple other alternatives, but we like any
alternatives for much bigger events.
Yeah. But for me, like, an alternative is a step down for what I'm looking at, what I'm seeing it. But it was like, people were saying like, the room got so full it was crazy, but really, especially looking through video, we have a lot of photos. There was just some congestion points in the room that was just based on 2 or 3 TCG tables too close to each other and a bit of bedlam happening there. There was a lot of spaces around the edges. So like the layout of the room next year definitely going to be adjusted in that regard. But that venue, with the level of people we had, it was perfectly fine. It was full for most of the day. Like it died down the last half an hour, and that was it, which was a bit mental.
Yeah.
At like our table, I was not meant to be at the Soccer United table, Jason. No. I was there for probably half the day. It's with some point of sale system issues I was fixing, but it was also just absolute mental.
What was I going to say? On the TCG queues at the TCG tables, and the fact that there was space elsewhere in the room, this comes down to one of the great theories of card shows. One of the great, I don't know what you'd call it. Is it a myth? Is it a theory? What is it? Which is cross-pollination between sports and TCG. So this is the holy grail. I call it the holy grail of card shows. This is what you dream of. This is what, when Topps, who are our headline sponsor again this year, thank you very much to them, when they, are looking at setting up shows, they don't mind if it's mostly TCG in terms of interest from attendees. They're like, that's who we can convert, all this cross-pollination. And so naturally, when you're doing the floor plan, the idealized flow is, okay, you like Pokemon, you go to your favorite Pokemon vendor, they are 6 people deep at the table, and then you say, all right, well, look, I see there's like, what are they, like basketball cards or something? And you walk over there and you look at the basketball cards, and then eventually there's spaces that, so you're kind of like, but what actually happens is the queue at the Pokemon table is now just 7 people deep, and the basketball table still has nobody at it. I expected it, people to kind of go, well, we'll just wait, or we'll just circulate, or we'll go elsewhere, or we'll stand over here. But no, it was like, they were like, I'm just going, the only way out was through, kind of thing.
Yeah, they're like, I'm flicking through this binder if it's the last thing I do. But again, like it's a weird one, because I do think a lot of the attendees were there for Pokemon, at least half. But I also feel like, no, I didn't hear a single sports table say they didn't have a good day.
No, because the show is at a size where even if half the people are coming for Pokemon, some of them will cross over, and there's still a huge amount of people there for sports.
Oh, and the Pokemon vendors, by the way, I think I haven't heard from a lot of them. I think they're still counting their cash, Jason. We're 4 or 5 days out.
Yeah.
Because like any complaint that we did have in terms of just the congestion points came from TCG buyers.
Yeah.
But every TCG vendor just had a smile on their face and said, "This is brilliant."
I had a couple of pieces of feedback from TCG vendors who were basically saying, they're like, look, like I heard a couple of things. Like they could almost, obviously they'd heard things from people when they, because it was, we can
Yeah,
talk about queuing and all that kind of stuff, but they had heard from either friends that went along as attendees or people at their table as attendees some pieces of negative feedback, but they almost couldn't get through this important constructive feedback that they wanted to give me because they were smiling too wide about how much money they.
but it's like a lot of people were like, we had a huge setup at Soccer. A lot of people were like, you should give that type of a setup at a wall to TCG, and it's like there isn't many
There
people
isn't
in
anyone with
Ireland
that
that
much
can fill
stock.
that
No.
space.
Yeah.
Because like year one, we gave everyone the opportunity to do that, and no one took it.
Yep.
And in fact, there was a lot of people that we right down to the wire. We had a couple of TCG tables that said, "Look, we have one table. We'd like to add another," and we were saying, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's add another because
Yes.
I want you to have more real estate. I want TCG in the room." And this is positive. But even it's like from the vendor point of view, they didn't even have the confidence to expand into 2 or God forbid 3 tables. So it's like the professionalized TCG hobby in Ireland is underdeveloped as well, is what I would say.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think we need to go into the reasons for that here, but traditionally you could just plug into the UK market and that was fine. And then Brexit happened, and then suddenly kind of it's almost like you have to start from scratch and rebuild the market, as has happened in all sorts of industries in Ireland over the last kind of few years. But
Yep.
I mean, just to give people an idea of how big our Soccer United setup was, somebody said, I can't remember who said it to me, but somebody said this is basically the size of what Dave and Adams or Blowout would have at the National. It's kind of that size of booth with that much wax.
No, I would say it wasn't that big because we've been to national, but it was.
No, it wasn't that big. But imagine
it was,
like just one side of that, basically.
Yeah.
Instead of a
It was
square.
like half a semi. Yeah, definitely. It was big, and we were so happy. We had so much Panini product out there as well. It wasn't just tops. It was just a very good spread, and we had all of our singles in a way that we've never had them all out at the same time. It was intense.
We had flick throughs and displays, and you've relied because I was doing all sorts of stuff during the show. I always seem to get wrapped up in crazy things during the show. But you told me that the flick through boxes were the hit of the day at our table.
Yeah. Flick throughs did a bigger hit than the displays, and partially I think that's because you can get your hands on it and get through it. But obviously the other part is that they were lower value items as well. But there was a lot of 10 to 30 euro cards in display cases that didn't get the love, and I do think part of that comes down to maybe there was a shine on the display case. To be honest, like it could be anything. I think it's hard, not as accessible as the flick throughs. I mean, we find that in London as well. Like we would just have all of our cards laid onto the table.
Anything that's like looking like it's going to be bought, you just flash it on the table.
It's just there. We didn't have that kind of setup in Dublin at all. Everything, and it's purely because the real estate was so big. You needed to keep your eye on everything at all times. So the easiest thing to do was have everything in the display case, have one kind of half a table with flick throughs, and then have all the wax, which had most of our eyes on it.
Yeah. So there was all sorts of stuff going on. There was a rugby kicking simulator, which had people
loved it.
Kicking all day at that. It was one of those things where, like, on the one hand, I don't like maybe one or two people mentioned it to me, but so I was like, is anybody even using this? Like, because obviously we rented it for the show, and then every time I would walk past, there'd be somebody kicking, and I would like kind of try and get an idea of like, are they enjoying this? Like, are they having a good time? And but obviously they're facing towards the simulator, so I couldn't see. And like a couple of times I walked past, and like they like kid would kick a good kick, and I would kind of clap and like try and get something going, and like there wasn't that going. But then I was like, but they're all doing it, so they must be enjoying it. I don't know how this simulator went.
I know, yeah. I never seen it not being kicked, so I think it was good.
Yeah, that must be it's a success.
Definitely. Or like, yeah. I mean, it's mental. Like it was a bit mental, and throughout the day, I was running around like a headless chicken, and I was hell bent on enjoying this year's one more than I did last year, because last year it was just a white noise. I don't remember, and it was over. Yeah. That pretty much happened this year. Only I remember a lot of the stress points that were happening throughout the day.
Yeah.
No, but like
actually, just on that, sorry, just the fact that neither of us really have a good idea of what happened exactly last year, but do have a pretty good idea what happened this year, actually probably means that last year was super smooth. Because although you might think you blacked out from stress, you're more likely to remember stressful moments. So it may just be that last year we were just kind of drifting around the room, things were okay.
I remember last year we sent out feedback forms, and legitimately the worst feedback we got, someone said the weather wasn't great, and someone else said there was a bit of traffic. There was traffic on the way to the venue, and that was literally the extent of the negative
Oh, the
feedback
negative
that we
feedback.
had last year.
Yeah.
And I was just like weirded out because I was like, was this just a perfectly run show? And there was some people that had said like, oh, I preferred last year to this year, but it was like kind of almost a selfish way because last year was less busy.
Oh,
We
yeah.
got to kind of
Last
mosey at
year.
each table, relaxing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look, honest, but as I was walking through the event and when I did get to kind of chat to people, people kept continuously just being like, whoa. You know, anyone I knew that had been to multiple shows, anyone I knew that was international, were stopping me and being like, this is unbelievable.
It's good.
We like
Yeah.
sponsors said this, like I'll go on record and say Top said, headline sponsor said this is one of 3 shows they have in Europe that is not a question. It's we're doing it every year.
Undroppable. So is it?
It's we're undroppable at the moment, and I think that's because they see what we see in the room, which is this isn't the Zion cases running around. Like it is an emerging market in all in one space, and I think there's a lot of conversions happening in there in terms of people that don't know before they walk through the doors, don't fully understand the hobby, and as they walk out, they might have a pack of Topps Chrome, or they might have bought a Showtime, and they might have been kind of like, that was a bit mad. There was autographs on those cards, and I don't really understand. But despite the fact that they almost had that inexperience, they were spending.
Yeah, they were spending their way to experience.
I had a lot of people at the table being like, can you give me advice on which box to buy? I want to dip my toe in. I kind of understand. Is this a good one? What would you recommend? You know, this, and I had a lot of that going on. We had a lot of people from up north come down this year, which didn't happen last year. You could just hear that obviously in the accent. Yeah. And they were a little bit more educated. I guess they're more exposed to kind of UK side of the hobby in England, etc. And they're on Whatnot. Like Whatnot was another thing. It's like someone recommended next year there be some live breaks, and I was kind of like, a lot of people in that room don't even know what breaks are. And like that was actually a moment where I was like, Jesus, like they don't even, that like breaking has become such a part of card shows, having Whatnot there, having, you know, Fanatics Live there if you're in the national eBay Live, whatever.
Having
that's not
there,
like,
if you're at the Paris card show.
Like I honestly think if we had a big section set up where a live break was taking place, a lot of people would be like, what the hell is happening? What is it? But in a good way.
Well, I mean, we had, do you want to tell people about the spin the wheel?
We had a spin the wheel, and I would say 1 hour into the show, I was begging now 3 of our staff members. We had, I think, maybe 10 staff members on the day. 3 of them were all stationed. It was meant to be 1. 3 of them all stationed at the spin the wheel, and they couldn't even handle it. And I was dipping in and dipping out, and it was just a complete chaos in the most beautiful way. But I would honestly say throughout the day, 4 or 5 times, I just kept saying, look, I know the spin the wheel is making money, but please shut it down. Shut it down. I can't. It's inducing anxiety. They kept coming over being, we need more boxes, we need more packs. I had like a sheet out with the prizes, and I had like 3 or 4 cases for each prize to kind of cover it. We ran out of prizes, and I was just like freaking out. We were just grabbing product and bringing it across. It became an absolute mess.
Multiple kind of names of products with lines kind of struck through.
Just gone. That prize is
actually
that product's not here anymore. We've actually run out of Chex Nodes, Bowman under €21. They're gone. There's no more. It was just brilliant. It was fun. People enjoyed it. Like,
just to give people a bit of an insight into that spin the wheel thing, just in terms of how something like that comes about. We had VIP tickets this year. One of the things we wanted to do was put a VIP raffle on, but we didn't want to do that over the PA system because that would kind of disillusion everyone that wasn't a VIP. And there weren't that many VIP tickets sold in comparison to the size of the overall show.
There was also an actual raffle. So we said if we try do 2 raffles together, one that's going to raffle open to everyone and one's a VIP raffle, people are going to get really confused and people will be jumping at VIP tickets with a normal raffle ticket.
It's going to distract the room
an absolute mess.
Twice.
So we decided, right, we need to spin the wheel instead, and we'll call that the VIP raffle. So we created little VIP tokens that you could bring to a spin the wheel and spin a VIP spin the wheel, which was the VIP raffle. Everyone got a raffle ticket. You got to spin the wheel. Brilliant idea. In the lead up to the show, maybe a week out, maybe less, I said to Jason, thinking this through, and we had like an almost Jason-sized spin the wheel. This was a big wheel. Thinking this through, I was like, kids are going to want to spin that wheel. Like, if you have a lot of kids through the door and they see a giant spin the wheel, they're going to go up and find out how to spin it. And if our response is that's for VIPs, that would be quite
that's not really growing the hobby, is it? That's not really 10xing the hobby. That's not.
No, it's definitely just upsetting little children because spin the wheels are colorful and people want to spin wheels. So I said, oh my God, this is a disaster. So I basically created 2 prize sheets.
Yeah.
One of which
catering to the maybe 20 children that might see the spin the wheel, get distracted by it, and wander up to it.
Yeah, so I was like, right, we'll do a little spin the wheel. They can get normal raffle tickets for the general raffle, and they can get a prize. And then I'll have a VIP one that if someone comes up with this yellow VIP token, I'll show them what the prizes are on that, and we'll spin the wheel and have a bit of fun.
Yeah.
I think that spin the wheel standalone by itself outperforms some card shows we've attended, Jason.
Yeah, 100%.
Globally.
100%.
It was bedlam. It was crazy.
If we
It
had
was
just done the spin the wheel, we would have walked away going like, that was worth it for sure.
That was a good show. Yeah, well worth the flight. And I know a Pokemon table also had a spin the wheel, and that led to some of the 7 deep lines that were going on. People love spin the wheel, but it was just it was mental. It was fantastic. It was fun. People enjoyed it. The majority of the feedback was positive. The only negative feedback we had was just the congestion points, because like a lot of people were saying, "Oh, there was a big line for Pokemon," and then other people were like, "Lads, if you had to just spread Pokemon around the room, it wouldn't have been that bad." Because like it was like if in one aisle maybe 2 Pokemon tables facing each other, so that was two lines kind of hitting each other. That's all. That's a quick fix. It's almost annoying that we have to wait a year to do that. But ultimately, a lot of those people also had never been to card shows, because a lot of people were just like, at the same time, even TCG people were like, yeah, this was brilliant. Like, this is, what happens in London. It's not a big deal. Like, there's demand for TCG.
Yeah. So like, so basically, congestion or queuing was kind of they were the only kind of negative words we've been hearing around the show, and they mean kind of there's 3 different categories of that. So one category is checking in the morning. So people did not turn up in an evenly spaced way during the day. They never do, but I would say it was even more exaggerated than we expected, and so we will be scaling our check-in capabilities next year. I don't need to say any more than that, right? And thank God it didn't rain. I'll say that too. But
oh my God,
yeah. And they also mean congestion in that if 2 vendors that are in the same aisle are busy, then it's hard to move around the room through those routes. And then they also mean congestion at some, X percent of the vendors are getting Y percent of the business, and that's causing queues at specific vendors. So those 3 things, although there's you can complain about 3 kind of separate things, they all sound the same sometimes. So initially when we sent out the feedback, we were like, what's going on here? But we've parsed through it, and it actually is like a few different problems that can all be alleviated separately to create a kind of a compound benefit next year. It's going to be fine, basically. Don't anyone worry about that.
No, there's definitely people are concerned about that, but it's a very, very easy fix on our part, especially with like we have the kind of photos now which we haven't put up yet, but like there was corners of the room that were kind of unused spaces that should have been used in a different way, and that kids ended up using as a place to sit, and it was just like a bit of chaos. Would be
people have said people said like, oh, this part of the room, why didn't you use that? And I want to say to them, why didn't you use that? What do you mean? If you were surrounded by people, you could have just walked over there. Apparently it was free. But they wanted to be where they wanted to be.
It just TCG. Like I'm excited for the expansion of that. I think like based on the day all of the TCG people seem to have had, I'm sure next year they're going to be saying I want 3 tables and I'm going to bring an extra pair of hands with me as well, because that ties into it too.
Yes, for sure.
I think we'll have to do a bit of coaching for the vendors next year. A little bit of a chat, a little prep talk, Jason, a little call prior. Like, lads, come on, get yourselves together.
Yeah,
use that TCG, because we had people fly over from New York that I think said to you, Jason, at the end was 4 of them maybe that flew from New York all TCG, and they said every year
they said we'll be back every year. We love the Irish TCG crowd, and we would like to supply them with product for many years to come. And I believe at least one of those vendors has now booked flights for the next London card show, because this was their first European card show experience. And we should also shout out to Harry that he came to the show, who runs London. But that was so good that we're here at the edge of Europe, and we're now winning business for everyone in the interior,
funneling people in.
Yeah. So you're welcome. Not that Harry needs our help, but he's welcome.
No, certainly not. But we've helped. He might end up chatting to them on the day. Who knows? Who knows? Trade nights. We need to fix that big time. People loved it. Don't get me wrong.
This is actually a part of the. I feel like we're now 33 minutes into the episode, and I feel like a lot of the casual listeners or people who are just listening about how the show went are gone. I feel like it's probably just our listeners left. Let's get real on the trade nights. How are we feeling about this?
The Friday was one of the biggest successes we've ever had as far as fun went. But the fundamental problem with trade night is that we have 2 hats on, Jason. We are Soccer Cards United and we are the Dublin Card Show. And in reality, Soccer Cards United and TFF Breaks did the Friday trade night that had nothing really to do with the Dublin Card Show. Because a lot of the problem we had is a lot of people that were coming to the Dublin Card Show were kind of like, I hear there's kind of a trade night tonight or something. Is there? And it was like, there is, but there kind of isn't, because it's not really an official one. And like, we don't even... It was complicated.
Yeah, because obviously we're going off last year, where we were saying last year there actually are things we could have done around the show, because we were kind of with people all weekend. We were like, it should have been great, a Friday event, a little preview for anyone that's flying in the Friday. And so again, we kind of had as kind of reacting to last year's show and what would have worked perfectly under a 2024 model. brought that forward to 2025. Then there's all this influx of people, and they're like, how do I get a ticket to trade night? Is there a trade night? Can I come to trade night? And it's like, right. If you don't know where trade night is, I can't tell you. You have to kind of just know. But that's obviously not that's not scalable unless we want to do a super exclusive Soccer Card United trade night in the way there might be like, I don't even know an example, a Blaze trade night or whatever at the national.
A VIP party, maybe VIP national party, maybe.
Almost that kind of vibe. But that is like not acceptable to do as Dublin Card Show organisers. But it's completely acceptable to do as Soccer Card United, who just are like, if you're in our podcast community, come to this.
Show up. Because like our Friday night, we had like 100 people. We had food, we had pints, we had cupcakes, and everyone was like, this was fun. This was social. This was fantastic.
It was like a little kind of pre-show mixer.
There was deals getting done as well. Like it was all happening, and it was just fun. And I had a great time. I had a great time, apart from the fact that I was also the Dublin Card Show host who then had to drag himself up. Like we finished sending the final vendor emails at maybe 1 a.m,
which didn't go unnoticed, by the way, by some of the vendors.
Which didn't go unnoticed. There was a tweet about that. Someone said, getting my final vendor email at 1 a.m, cutting it close, lads, but at least the Wi-Fi info is there. Yeah. But like, listen, we got the job done. But it's almost like we'd like to host that Friday event without us even being there. Probably would have been a smarter way of doing it. But yeah, it's a bit messy. And then, like, do we want to expand into an actual Saturday trade night official one? Potentially. But then it's, like, hard to know. Is this year, I think that wouldn't have been a full room, whereas maybe next year it would be. You know what I mean? Because people are like, I want official trade night. It's like, yeah, but there's not that many of you to justify that. But then maybe there is.
And again, it comes down to we have international visitors and we have local people attending the card show. And if you're an international visitor, you only have, maybe 24, 36, 48 hours in Dublin. So you kind of want to I want a bit of pub culture. I want to have a good time while I'm here, because that's one of the reasons the show is actually in Dublin.
And a one-day show.
And a one-day show. So as part of the pitch for your internationals, it's like, well, come have a few pints if you want to, if drinking's your thing, and enjoy some trading. But then if you're local, you're like, well, I don't necessarily need you to tell me where to go or to bring me to a pub, because I'm going to go home after this and then I'll go out later.
I'm here for a trade night.
I'm here for trade night because this is my one night a year where all these card heads are in town. Mm-hmm. So I'd be very interested to hear people's feedback and ideas on that one specifically.
Yeah, because I think if we were we could host a trade night inside the same venue because we have it for the full night. We could do that easily, but from our point of view, is we'd have to man the trade night for sure. We'd have to be there present. But I would imagine a lot of our international vendors would be like, I'd rather not be in the venue. I'd rather be in town having pints.
Yeah, and so then you'd end up at you get a clique of, say, American vendors who are saying, we all just heard about this place where there's music, so we're going to go there and we're going to trade amongst ourselves. But then, the way we had it at the moment, it's not like there's loads of people experiencing trade night anyway. So
yeah, it's confusing. It's a job for us. We're balancing the international kind of vendors and attendees that we have based on our network. And now I would say officially beyond our network, because we did have people fly over that didn't listen to the podcast, didn't know us, just knew there was a show in Dublin.
Yes.
Because last year was successful. This year seems to have been very successful as well. And that's going to amplify in a way that I think, as you were saying, Jason, you're expecting a lot more German visitors next year because we had a lot more Germans here this year and they're going back with good stories. So yeah, I don't know. It's about scaling it beyond ourselves, I would say, is one of the biggest problems that we're having, because we want to do something as Enzo and Jason, Soccer Cards United, but fundamentally we're the host of a Dublin Card Show. We don't want people feeling left out. But on the flip side, we want to feel accommodating towards everyone that has taken the time to fly over.
Yeah.
We had attendees come over from India that said they listened to the podcast. We got deals done.
Yeah.
It was mental. Like this year, even more than last year, I had little kids asking for photos and saying that they watch our YouTube video.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was like, oh shucks, that was fantastic. I mean, 4 or 5 times. Like, there's not as many as maybe GBWs of the world are getting, which by the way, an absolute Dublin superstar.
Incredible. A Dublin Card Show legend, GBW.
Absolutely. But even that, that's organic. It's almost like if I was him, I'd be like, lads, pay me to make an appearance and I'll, you know what I mean? But
don't even suggest that on air, please.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. It's like, but he's like, I enjoy Dublin. It's a bit of fun. I have a bit of crack and I love it. And it's fantastic for us, obviously.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's about keeping the show as fun as possible. Like I would struggle to scrap the Friday mixer because of how successful it was, but I understand also I don't want people feeling left out on the Friday either.
Well, I mean, just to give people an idea. So obviously we collaborated with TFF Breaks. Lucas himself couldn't make it, but a couple of his team were there. and I don't want to blow up their spot by saying who went, and they did a 2-box Inception break, which was free to anyone that was there. Tickets were free, but ticketed, to the event, and so we had loads of people there. It was a great buzz, and it's like we could do that, but it will always have to be reasonably exclusive. Now you might say, well, there's never going to be that many people, because a lot of Irish people had gotten tickets for it and didn't come. And I said to you, well, that's quite clearly you book it way in advance, and then you're like, it's Friday evening, I get home from work, am I going to go into town and then
I'll
also go
price my
into town in
card.
the morning for, you know what I mean? Because you're not on holiday. So
It
there's
was
that
a
element
huge
of it.
success for all the internationals that went to that one. That was like the Friday was spectacular for them. Like it was fun. It got a little out of hand in my regard. I woke up Saturday feeling a little bit rough. We didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I think pre-show, Jason, we got maybe 2 or 3 hours of sleep.
Yeah, yeah.
Like so that, like,
You're sending
but then that's an
emails,
easy
etc.,
fix.
etc. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't good, but it was very Irish, so that was kind of fun. To kind of we walked in morning of, and a lot of vendors came in going, "Did you get much sleep?" And it felt very Irish. How long were
Yeah.
you up?
It was
But
it,
that's
it's
not how we
definitely
wanted
fun,
to
yeah.
be.
But
That wasn't.
because in theory, let's go from the other. Like, if you're someone who doesn't know us, right? You're not like in the like Soccer Cards United extended universe. You're not like clapping, or like slapping hands at everybody, whatever. And it's like, if you're a vendor and then you see like there's someone who appears to be the organizer of the show come in and everyone's like, oh, this guy, and then you're like, hang on, I got an email at 1 a.m. Are you telling me he was out with you last night before I got my information? You know what I mean? Like, that is not,
Yeah,
if you
no,
don't know us, that's not great.
unacceptable. Yeah. Now, thankfully, again, the vendors were all happy. It was a very smooth event. We
No,
held it down, but like
as it came out, as it turned out, that didn't happen. But it
didn't affect it. But it could have in a different world.
yeah.
We could have forgot to send the email, and everyone wouldn't have known the Wi-Fi on the day.
Exactly. So listen, we also had our kit vendors back. There was an incredible display of kits. Enzo, I just want to show.
Oh wow!
You there?
He's back. You're there.
My screen went blank for a second. I want to show a couple of bits that I got. Look at this. This is an England versus Republic of Ireland. England 1-0 win. Kevin Keegan scored Brian Robson's first game at Wembley. 6th of February 1980. I got that little PC. I'm not a memorabilia guy, as you know, but couldn't resist that. And then I won't go into all this kind of stuff because we probably want to do a pickup video at some point. But there are a couple of there are a couple of pieces here. There's this Frosinone Calcio shirt, which I know you picked up.
Yeah, I got that off Football Kit Box, Paul. He actually gave it to me for free. He dragged me over to the table. I was so busy, I kept saying, "Give me 2 minutes, give me 2 minutes." And I ran over. He had 2 kits. He said, "Which one do you like?" I chose that one, and I said, "Let me pay you for it." And he said, "Not at all."
Wow, incredible stuff! And
that
also,
was before the day got crazy.
We should just say that Paul also runs KitCon, who were a sponsor this year, and curated an incredible display of kits. So thank you specifically to Paul. We did. I'm looking here. We did get loads of gifts, and I don't really want to name who gave us what because I don't want to leave anybody out.
Okay.
I can look and I can identify most things, but there's definitely some things people gave us as very generous gifts that I just can't remember who gave it. So I don't really want to. But I will say, I'll just give one shout out because it's not a card. So, and that is these. But there was one for me. There was one for you. These terrible towels, which is a tradition of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are our official
NFL.
Here in
That's
Ireland.
right.
So
we both got a terrible towel.
Yeah.
You got to pick of the bunch. Apparently, I didn't know that they were different. But I got my terrible towel. I got some incredible PC pickups. They're actually still in my house. I did not bring them here today. I do want to do a pickup video, but right now I'm just piling through emails and piling through all sorts of things. Like I'm underwater with the amount of things that we need to get done.
You're back to your day job.
Back to my day job, and I feel like I have 16 different day jobs. All but yeah, no, PC pickups were incredible. Shout out to Brad, specifically DJ Q's. Shout out to Breakfast, who gave me a stack of Frosinone cards that he says he does breaks. Frosinone spot doesn't fill, and he's just piling them up for me. Gave me a few golds. Shout out to Laws, who that's right, Laws, although I had to, did I pay him? I should have paid him. I need to talk to Laws. I feel like I paid him. I probably owe Laws money. But I got a good few gold Frosinones for my Frosinone PC. Got some Italian cards. Got my Sebastian Giovinco. I'm a very, very, very happy man. I feel like I owe Laws money. I'm not sure. Things are coming back to me that I don't recall. It was a crazy weekend, Jason. Like, last year we were in control. This year it was an event unto itself twice over, I would say.
it was kind of like we were kind of navigating the rapids on this year. The event was moving very, very quickly under our feet. I will say, even on my PC, there was loads and loads of Irish stuff around, and I didn't get a chance to go buying anything until like the last half hour of the show. And because the vendors, like last year, like vendors would literally just like they'd see me and they'd be like, they'd have time to leave their stuff in the display case, walk over and say, "I've got an XYZ in that. Do you want to come over and have a look at it?" And I would have time to be like, "Yeah, I'm not doing anything. I'll come over." But this year was just crazy. And as I was walking around, I kept seeing things in display cases that I was like, I have to come back and buy that. And then it would either be gone when I came back, or the person would be busy, or whatever, or I'd be busy. So it was, I felt much more like I'm here as a card show organizer, and not, last year I kind of felt like
I
I'm
suppose
here
a
in
good thing.
whatever capacity you need me to be here in.
Yeah, we were busy. Like I really this year it was kind of that thing of like, if this year was last year in terms of attendance, which was like less than twice what we had now, I think I would have enjoyed myself tremendously. Like I was prepared for that almost thing. Like everything else was so well prepared. We had a scanning system for boxes. Everything was priced. I was like, I'm gonna have a lot of free time on this day, and that very much
You
I
mean if
didn't
we
see a
only had
table.
last year's attendance at this year's show, but
If
everything
we were
else was
as
the same?
prepared this year as we were last year, I would have had a ball last year walking around doing all sorts.
Yeah.
Whereas this year, I was ready for that ball, and suddenly I was behind at the soccer desk, scanning stuff and fixing point of sale systems
Yes,
and
because you kind of
freaking out about a spin wheel.
spend all year saying like, all the stuff that I didn't do last year during the day, or stuff I didn't think of doing, or photos I didn't take, or videos I didn't do, or people I didn't meet, etc., etc. And then you kind of like, so you're preparing on an outdated paradigm, and then you get to this year,
Yeah,
and you're like, oh my god, this is a whole other set of stuff. None of my
yeah.
notes apply
Like
here at all.
there was people that had flown in that I didn't get a chance to speak to.
Yeah,
Like that's crazy
yeah,
to me. I'm like, how? Because we try our best to interact with everyone, but like, I really wanted to see every international table specifically. Anything there for me, I wanted to pick it up. I literally barely spoke to anyone. Like it was the day happened to me almost. It was a
mm,
bit mental, but
mm,
it was a success. People loved it. The buzz at the end, the buzz during it, the buzz afterwards was fantastic. People were super happy, particularly people in our world of sports cards, in our world of kind of internationals,
yeah.
and the Irish loved it. The Irish vendors were
Um,
foaming at the mouth and chomping at the bit for two a year.
yeah.
Um, Fantastic. But there are definitely people I wanted to like. I got deals done, and it happened at the table. People had to come up to the table to get the deals done, but like it wasn't the way I was expecting it to be. You know?
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. I will say that obviously we're telling everyone it went well. It did go really well. If you don't believe us or would like to corroborate our testimony, there actually is a nice little body of work on YouTube right now by a variety of different vendors and visitors to the show, um, and you can go on and look, and they will tell you, and you can judge for yourself. And there's POV videos from vendors. There's kind of like flying from Germany to whatever, etc. And we still have a couple of big heavy hitters who haven't published their content yet. But I have a feeling. I mean, so Troy was he was on Jeff Wilson's podcast, as you remember, and mentioned that he was going to Dublin. And Jeff Wilson, long time kind of figure of our hobby imagination on this podcast, sort of, in my opinion, skipped over or dismissed the Dublin Card Show in favor of just kind of talking about European or UK card shows in general. I don't think the next time the Dublin Card Show comes up publicly on Jeff Wills's podcast, it's going to be able to be skipped over in quite the same way. I'll put that gauntlet down right now.
We scaled to a point where we are on par with all the big European shows, in my opinion, which is a big statement to make. Like, don't get me wrong, the attendees still need to level up and get more mature, but I really don't think I mean, we've been to all the big ones, Jason. Like it was similar vibe. The only thing missing is it's less developed, but that's just a case of waiting.
Yeah, in terms of the level of interest, the size, um, there's nothing to like. There's no kind of no fundamental difference, I would say. And for us, one of the things to do is to kind of go, first of all, go and spread that word and try and, and I don't even want to use the word grow next year, because that's not quite what
No,
I don't need to grow the numbers. I just want to kind of improve, I would say, or deepen, maybe deepen the experience. There was definitely the correct volume, or the correct kind of number of people there, but I would have just liked to have maybe some deeper features there. I mean, a grading company, for instance. I'm not going to call out
Jesus.
specific grading companies that I've been in touch with over the
Yes.
past 24 months, but like it is just you know,
That was, if you were a
can't get
grading
in.
company in any capacity, it was an absolute disgrace that you didn't have that on your, like, you missed one of the biggest opportunities probably in this year that you would have had to convert people to be customers, to receive submissions, and to just market your brand. Like, honestly, any one of the kind of straggling grading companies would have significantly benefited from being there. And if PSA themselves, who are obviously market leaders, had showed up to it, they would have just had one of the easiest wins that they've had in the last
Yeah,
3-4 years.
yeah. So that's something, because I would say, apart from once we sold out of tickets, obviously the most common thing was, I don't have tickets, can I have some tickets? The second most
The
common thing was, can I grade my cards at the show?
what grading company will be there?
Yeah. And so that is so when I talk about growing the show or improving the show for next year, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, as opposed to, like, I don't need the queue outside to be any longer when the doors open.
No, no. Like, I think we're going to aim to do the exact same tickets next year. Spread the room out a little bit better. That way, the congestion points are non-existent. Improve the registration at the start. That way, the line is faster, which is obviously a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Remove some of the friction points, like maybe even the general goodie bags, Jason, because that added to a delay in
Of course.
getting
Yeah.
people in the door. And that was kind of part of growing and scaling the show, which as we've seen, it's worked. Like, we've scaled to capacity. Like, I don't think, it's crazy to say, but I don't think we'd struggle to sell 3,000 tickets next year at all. Like, radio ads, with all due respect, if they're listening, I'm sorry, I think yous are gone. We pretty much had it sold out before the radio ads even started running.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there's a variety of things that we're going to do. And because you do stuff like that, our budget's going to be a bit up. And it's just about deepening the experience. We've flirted with upstairs and using it for a variety of different ways. We might just hold it the same, I think, next year, and just run it better
That's
and deeper.
people can quote us or not quote us on this later, but that's where we are. I mean, on the day, I was telling people, I know you were too, like, people kind of running up saying, like, are you going to do 2 a year? And I would kind of give them a whole, like, they're only asking me kind of a casual question to be polite, and I'm kind of like, no, let me tell you exactly what's going to happen, and I kind of, it's going to be 1 million people, and we're going to have all the way up to the sky full of tables.
I was literally, my thinking going into the weekend was, next year will be 5,000 to 6,000 people. We'll have upstairs as a trade area and a kind of lounging area, food, and there'll be fine. And, like, after even the congestion points and just a few other bits, it's kind of like, I think I would just rather 3,000 people, keep it downstairs, spread it out, have more sponsors that are actually going to benefit in terms of having a green company, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And kind of just let the demand be the demand, let people miss out, and let the other smaller shows that are going to be popping up all over Ireland, which I imagine is going to happen, let them have their own little, like, communities and be the training wheels to get people ready to be vendors or be a better attendees, more educated attendees at the following one, the next year, which could then be 2-floor. That's the mindset I'm kind of having.
I think this was definitely kind of a slightly sobering experience. We're kind of brought back down to earth, although it may seem, people listen to this, like, you don't sound like you're on earth at all. You sound like you fully drank your own Kool-Aid here. But
we were thinking 5,000, 6,000 next year, and I was like, do you know what? 2 years to 3,000 is actually perfectly fine, and probably the way to do it.
Because if we'd gotten to like 2,500 this year and then grown it to 3,000 next year, that would have still, we've kind of, the growth was very.
It feels like we skipped a step. The growth was more than it should have been year one, and it wasn't like some people were. Some of the people that complained about the congestion points at the show, so the TCG guys said they were very greedy selling all these tickets, and it's like, hold on a minute. Entry was €10, kids were free. Like, it wasn't like capacity wasn't a greed thing, and obviously the venue wouldn't let us over capacitate the venue because they're in charge. But it was just kind of this, like, no, like, that's not.
Do you know what's funny? We could have had. It could have been an over 18s event, so everyone paid for their ticket, and we still would have sold
out. Oh, if we had zero capacity in the venue, we could have gone to 4,000 this year completely.
Yeah.
But the amount of, like, 1 week out, no tickets being sold, and about hundreds of people saying, I need 7 tickets.
Yeah.
Like, we could have sold it 4 times over. We had people at the door with no ticket coming in going, just take the money. Come on, let me in. What's the problem?
Yeah.
Like, it was crazy. There was a secondary market for tickets.
Trying to slip me a 50, like.
It was insane. So, like, we'd rather stabilize the show and improve the quality of it again, as opposed to expand it and then find new issues. Because it's very hard to expand upstairs without one of the floors, most likely the upper floor, would then kind of struggle,
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. I'm trying to think what else to cover. We've thanked Tops as our headline sponsor. We've thanked KitCon. We should thank GTS as well, who are, of
Yep.
course, set up in GTS Europe is based in Dublin, have been a great support to us over the last couple of years. They were there again. eBay were, for the first time, a sponsor of the show. They had a giant banner and some staff in the room as attendees, but did not have a booth. So we're looking forward to kind of, growing our relationship with them over the next 12 months or so. Also, and so we did, as people will have heard us do on air over the last few weeks, we went for a hot food option from the venue.
Yeah.
And again, this is not, we're not having an on-air production meeting here. There's a limit to how deep this could go in terms of what we've been talking about internally. But we've heard you on the burgers, we've heard you on the pizza. That's all.
But like we went to Comic-Con and it was the same venue and I think the same catering and we hated
100%
That's
it
why
was, yeah.
year one we said no hot food, we're not doing it. And then year two we said, look, it'd be good to add it in, and we tried to make them cook things that you can't really get wrong. I wanted chicken tenders and chips. They said we can't do that. Gave us chicken burgers and margarita pizza. I said that should be safe. I honestly didn't hear that much about it, to be honest. But when I did hear it, it was no, not for me. And I ate the cold food, which was nice, and I did get a lot of people saying the sandwiches were great. I had a wonderful ham and cheese ciabatta. But yeah, I think next year it's going to be food trucks outside once we clear it with the venue and think about the potential pitfalls of out food truck in that kind of area, etc., etc.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where I'm a lot harsher on this than you are, but my feeling kind of was, and I agreed with trying the hot food, but I mean, in terms of like if you're an attendee, and again that goes back to the vendor versus attendee experience. If you're an attendee, it's at 10 o'clock and it finishes at 4 o'clock, and it's in the city centre, and you can come back in if you have a lanyard. So either you're not there for long enough that you need to have a hot meal, or you are there for long enough that you need to have a hot meal. At which point you can go anywhere. And
or like people ordered Deliveroo / Uber Eats, whatever you want to call it, to the venue
yeah,
because you're in city centre and everything's really close to you, and someone can hop on a bike or a motorbike and drop it to the venue in about 5 minutes.
Yeah. So, yeah, and again, I had multiple vendors saying, I heard there was all sorts of food options, but I didn't get a chance. I was too busy. And that again comes down to staffing at tables. That comes down to I guess that's a good
busyness of the show.
problem to have.
We're almost being, Jason, we're almost being apologetic with how busy it was. You know, it was like,
Yeah, I'm
vendors had
sorry
a
so many
fantastic
people came
day.
to spend money. I get that.
I'm sorry that you only had the last half hour of the show to catch your breath. And quite frankly, we had cut an hour off the top of the show so as it didn't drag out in the last hour.
Yeah.
And instead, a lot of people were kind of like, oh, you should add that hour back on.
Oh, I mean, that was like one of the funniest things ever was that we, one of the pieces of feedback last year was the last hour was slow. It was kind of slowed down. Last maybe hour and a half was pretty slow, and we reacted to that again, kind of designing for last year, and it was like, right, we'll knock an hour off, and that worked too well. And the first time somebody said to me, I think you could even go to 5 o'clock, and I knew they didn't know
that we did it last year.
That we had been to 5 o'clock last year. I was just like, this is what this is, isn't it? This is just kind of you go around and around and around.
Yeah, yeah. There's always, you can't take all the feedback too seriously, but like it's funny because it's kind of like it was. I don't know. It's like when you watch a perfect movie and it just ends, and you're like, that was actually grand, and someone's like, I wish there was another hour, but it's like, but you don't really. Like it ended with people wanting a bit more, and that's kind of a better way.
Which is kind of the first rule of things. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, now in fairness, we could say we could go till 5 because you think about it, an international vendor has flown in. They might want an extra hour if they can, because it's kind of like, if I'm here for the day, make the day as long as possible. Like we could, in theory, add the hour back on, implement tickets at the door from 2 o'clock and have that better advertised because we decided that super late that we were going to even do it because we weren't sure on capacity.
We announced that, I think, just before 1 a.m. on Friday
that's
night
right,
as well.
definitely. But it was funny as well because like that was something that the main reason beyond not doing that was we were scared not enough of the people that came would have left by that time, and we didn't want congestion points. We didn't want to be greedy. We didn't, it was like all of those things.
Yes.
But I think, but I personally, as a show, someone that vends at shows, and obviously in this case, organizes shows, I love it ending at 4 because I feel like you have your evening.
You definitely do. You can go and drop your stuff back if you want to, and you have it.
Yeah, by half 5, you've teared everything down and you're back in your hotel, and then you're freshening up a little bit, eating some food, and you're out for the night if you want to be. When it ends at 5, you start to get acid reflux and you're starving and you feel horrible. And
yeah, and you're kind of doing that thing where like you finally do eat, but like you went too long without eating.
You're not happy about it. Yeah, it doesn't feel good. I'd rather start it at 9 than end it at 5, I would say. I'd rather give an hour at the start with some early entries in and then but yeah, I don't know. It's complicated. Like I love that we kind of had a show that the majority of the people that we care most about in terms of care about their opinion and care about their kind of standing in our version of the hobby gave us absolutely glowing reviews, and we've spent the last week dissecting it and trying to find out how to make it even better.
Yeah.
So I love that about us, Jason, but I also think we do need to soak in what was, without a doubt, if we're able to call this the best soccer card podcast in the world, and I think it's fair to say the best card show ever held in Ireland happened last weekend.
I think we could say that, yeah.
And that was, myself and yourself. A lot of people said the team putting this together are incredible, and I was like, that's just me and Jason with a different hat on. But yeah, and our group of friends and family that
false mustaches and stuff.
Yeah, but brilliant, crazy, mental.
We should thank our friends and family who were there on the day, working away and giving us a dig out. We should thank the convention centre staff for keeping everybody safe.
Did you hear the story about our uncles, Jason?
I did hear the story about our uncles. Yes,
that was mad. I will give my thanks to my uncle John. Only he swore blind that he had his ticket bought, which I knew he didn't because I had access to the back end. And at 2:00, I had to run out and tell all of your friends at the check in. That's my Uncle John. Just let him in. There you go.
So shout out Uncle John. I'm trying to think, is there anything else I want to say before? Because obviously we're going to be talking about this. This is not like we're doing this podcast and then we're never going to talk about the show again.
Well, we won't talk about it for a while. I think I'm happy to kind of close the book on it for year 2. The photos, etc., will be out eventually. Only I'm the person that does them, so it's going to take a while because I'm digging through other bits.
Yeah.
But I do need to put them back up on. I'm going to have the website kind of go 2024, 2025 and have all the impressions in there. But just not quite yet. I don't know when is a acceptable time to put that up. I feel like I have until at least Saturday, Sunday, I would like to think.
Yeah, fine. We've only gotten one DM about it so far.
That's fine. Don't worry about that. But no, it was a brilliant day. Like it was mental. Planning for it was mental. I do think we're going to be a lot more prepared again next year because like a lot of the planning has been done. Like the scan system is always functioning now. Like we have a point of sale system. We can implement an extra one. I just think, it was mental. I do think in the future a 2 a year will happen, but I just don't think
down the line.
Down the line, yeah, exactly. Like it'll eventually happen. But I don't. There's no reason to oversaturate it today. I think that would be foolish. I think there is a magic to it. It's once a year. We can announce a date. People can lock it in, and people know they're coming to the event as opposed to one of the 2 events. And I'm not sure if this is the good one.
Yeah. So if you were at the Dublin Card Show on Saturday, feel free to leave your feedback in one of the feedback forms that's been sent to you by email or in the comments here on the podcast. If you weren't, make sure you sign up to the mailing list at dublincardShow.com to make sure you don't miss out in 2026. You can follow Dublin Card Show on Instagram, and you can keep in touch with us in all the usual places as well. I think we'll wrap it up there. And I want to say, because Enzo and I have had such a crazy kind of few weeks culminating in this weekend just gone, and varying kind of combinations of sleep, eating, drinking, etc., don't take anything that we said on this specific episode of the podcast as gospel. There, we may, I just want to kind of put a caveat onto this episode.
Yeah, everything can change in a couple of months. Give us a bit of sobering time, not literal, but also literal, I suppose.
Yeah.
Just to figure ourselves out, get back to our. Right now, like I'm doing some accounting work, Jason. Like I'm in a different mind frame altogether. It's all.
And the accountants are like, you haven't filled out the books.
Yeah, and I'm pausing the accountant. I'm pausing the accountancy to be the podcaster, So there's a lot happening. I think 2025 doesn't see any more shows from Soccer Cards United in terms of hosting, but it probably does have a Soccer Cards United that might need to start expanding the team. That might be, we might be getting there, Jason, after all these years.
So listen, right, that's us. I hope everyone is good. And I hope you enjoyed the show if you were there. I hope you enjoyed your weekend if you weren't. We're back next week at the regular day of Wednesday, which is today, isn't it? So we're on schedule? Yep.
We're on schedule today, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Enzo, congratulations on another edition of the Dublin Card Show.
Jason, same to you. It was
thank you very much.
Sum of all parts, no doubt about it, and we got it done. Yeah, we got it done, Jason, yet again. We put a European show of global stature on the map. We're not far off calling it the international. Let's just put it.
Whoa, that's a great note to end on. We'll see you later.